Canucks shut out the champs, and JT Miller's return to the lineup. A good night all around at Rogers Arena, and we're here to break it all down on Rink Wide Vancouver. And we welcome you inside our Rink Wide Vancouver studios, downtown Vancouver. It's Jeff and it's Irv with you after a 4-0 Vancouver Canucks win over the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Got the early start they were looking for, jumped all over the champs, and really didn't look back. One of the most complete victories of the season for the Vancouver Canucks. Rink Wide Vancouver, a presentation of Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Be sure to use code NATION when opening an account. Now, you've heard us talk about Super Chats in the past as well. Just want to mention this, that our Super Chat charity partner is the BC Mental Health Foundation. You want to make sure your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chats go to the BC Mental Health Foundation, changing the face of mental health and addiction by supporting breakthroughs in care, public understanding, research, and knowledge exchange. Get the chat going. It's already hopping, as you can see. You can hit us up on our socials as well. Or if they shut out the Stanley Cup champions and look pretty good doing it. Lots of storylines, obviously, coming out of the Raj tonight. Yeah, you mentioned it, Kevin Blankinen, contract season, Kevin Blankinen, tied now for the league in shutouts with 3 this season. 6th of his career. JT Miller, you mentioned, playing back. Not much to hate from this game from the Vancouver Canucks if you're a fan. Lots to love, lots to talk about, Jeff. And let's get right to it. The Canucks have 15 wins now. They're 15-8-5 on the season. Much needed home ice victory, and they've alternated home wins and losses on this homestand. But this was a step in the right direction. And again, just getting JT Miller back, the announcement in the starting lineup, Al Murdoch with the JT Miller, and that got the crowd chanting off the opening faceoff. But it wasn't just JT Miller. Derek Forbort returned after 6 weeks away with a lower body injury. Not as much fanfare, obviously, with Derek Forbort, but a part of this storyline, don't for a second discount the play of the bottom pair of the Vancouver Canucks, Forbort and Mark Friedman. But it was Max Sasson that had people. He was buzzing. The rink was buzzing. Max Sasson with a 2-assist night, 2 primary helpers, sets up Carson Soucy off the rush just 2 minutes and 33 seconds, 2:23 into the hockey game. We talked about the early start and the setting the tone, and then it was Max Sasson again, nifty setup, Danton Heinen. And that's something we haven't said in a long, long time. His first goal in a while, 4th of the season. Sasson with the 2 primary helpers there. Teddy Bluger with assists on both of them as well. So you're getting that kind of contribution. A defenseman, not named Quinn Hughes, 4th-line guys. It is wild, but we see this in pro sports all the time. The return of one player at the top of the lineup and how it impacts everybody else sort of falling into their proper roles. Yeah. And without a doubt, I mean, that's as good as the 4th line has looked for the Vancouver Canucks in a long, long time. Well, I think that's just it, right? We mentioned after last game, getting JT Miller back was going to be an important part for the Vancouver Canucks, not just because for offensively, but of how it rounds out the lineup. And, you mentioned the play of Max Sasson absolutely flying out there in the first period. That's how you stay in the NHL. A couple periods like that, a couple games that he's had. The goal eventually, I think, is going to come for him at some point. He's definitely had some chances. But yeah, I think that, when you look at it from overall point of view, Jeff, can we call this their most complete game of the season? Taking the opponent into consideration. I think we kind of got to put it there. Yep. They were good offensively, good defensively, and obviously got the shutout. Yeah, and look, I've been among those that have said, hey, who have they beaten? And there have been some, the win in Los Angeles, the fact they beat the Panthers in Florida early in the season, they were without Barkov and Tkachuk. Well, guess what? Those 2 guys were there in the lineup. This is a Florida team that just didn't look like they had it, and this is a credit to the Canucks because the Panthers rolled into town. They were 6-0-1 in their last 7, so they were flying. They're the 5th highest scoring team in the National Hockey League, 5th best power play. They had a couple of power play opportunities. Canucks penalty killers. Didn't have a great day against Tampa the other day. Gave up 1 against St. Louis the other night, but they were perfect in their 2 kills in this hockey game. So spread it all around, and we mentioned Forbort and Friedman. Carson Soucy opens the scoring. we got this deep into the show, and we barely, I think I mentioned Quinn Hughes in passing when I said a defenseman other than Quinn Hughes that scored a goal. But, sort of the way it all shakes down is this is a night when Quinn Hughes has 2 assists. He was dancing. He only played 22 minutes and 27 seconds, which obviously for him, after a week where he's been playing close to 30 and up over 30, it's a huge break for him. It's great for the hockey club. They had the luxury of a lead. They could roll their 4 lines and their 6 defensemen in the third period. Now, for Hughes, and I went and looked quickly, and then I was like, well, wait a sec. He got kicked out of the Ottawa game, played 5 minutes there, and missed 13 minutes against Tampa. So, at 22 minutes, it's not a season low. And in fact, with the face injury the other day, it's not even the lowest that he's played in a while here. But he's still doing it with the full bubble as well, and that doesn't seem to be impacting him. Nothing. Like, what phase is this guy?
Nothing,
apparently. Add 2 more helpers for Quinn Hughes on the Boeser goal, and then on the Jake DeBrusk power play goal. And, among the billions of storylines in this thing, 500 for Brock Boeser, and he does it in style. I love the entry into the zone and the first shot that he snapped it and got a fortunate bounce off the side of the net as the puck came right back to him, and the Panthers were all looking to the left, and there was Brock with basically an empty net to shoot at. He wasn't going to miss. But look, we've talked about the fact that coming back off the head injury and without JT Miller, it just hasn't looked as dangerous as he did earlier in the season. So nice to see a man with a sense of occasion in his 500th National Hockey League game scoring to make it 3-0 there early in the second period.
Yeah, his name's been in the news for the last couple of days, and obviously the 500th game. Congratulations to him on that. But yeah, I mean, that whole play on that goal, Jeff, where Quinn Hughes picks up the puck around the net, kind of comes up to JT Miller. What a pass to Brock Boeser. But that's the instant chemistry that the Canucks have been lacking. That's what one player can do and how much he can change the lineup. Knows where his teammate's going to be, knows where his line mate's going to be on plays like that. And Brock obviously, is able to get his own rebound, kind of carry him off the boards really weirdly, and, that's what goal scorers do, though. You find the puck, you don't lose track of it, and you're able to bury it in the back of the net.
Yeah, and so he's up to 8 on the season, and hopefully he's got a bunch more to come. And, of course, he's got some work to do to catch Jake DeBrusk, who is up to 14 goals now, Irf. This one rounds out the scoring. Not the most important goal of the season for him, but, hey, they all count. And at the outset of the year, talk of this market was, all right, long-term commitment to Jake DeBrusk. 25. It's got to be, he's going to play with Elias Pettersson. He's going to be on the power play. It's got to be good for 25. Irf, he's got 14 in 28 games, and he didn't score in the first 9 games. He has 14 goals in his last 19 hockey games. This guy absolutely on fire.
Yeah, heater. And I think that when you're looking at the ways that he's scored the goals too, he's getting the stick on absolutely everything, right? I mean, he'll take the gimme goals. He'll take the ones off his butt if he needs to. He'll take the goals that then go to the areas where no one wants to go to get them. But he doesn't need to be a sniper. You've got guys on this team that can put the puck in the net in those ways. For him to have success and for this team to have success, especially with him playing with Elias Pettersson, I know the goal is on the power play, but especially with him playing with Elias Pettersson, he needs to be that type of player where you go and try to go to the dirty areas and get those garbage type of goals. So,
simple math, 14 goals, 28 games. I'm not expecting 40, but boy, he has set himself up to really take a run at 30, which would be a career high for him. Yep. And I know when they signed him, just given his age and the opportunity that he's going to get to play with good players here, I thought, he better score 30 at some point over the length of his contract. And he has put himself in position here with this run through the month of November that's carried into December. And remember, there's a time he couldn't score at home and hadn't scored at home. That's out the window now because home and away. He's scoring in bunches, and he's up to 14. So almost halfway to 30 here, and there's still a bunch of games to go before Christmas. So good on him. Seems to have settled in now, playing with a ton of confidence. And you're right. Things weren't going his way.
No.
In the first 9 games, everything coming up roses for Jake DeBrusk. And JT Miller wins the face-off on the power play. Hughes with a shot, and DeBrusk tips it. And you're right, that goal looked like he scored a bunch of that goal already for the Vancouver Canucks, and hopefully more to come. All right, let's get to the 3 stars because that will lead us down the road of a couple of talking points that I want to get to here. 3 stars in the building: JT Miller, Kevin Lankinen, Max Sasson. Look, the Miller story is great, and we'll touch more on it and go through his night in great detail here. I think Kevin Lankinen against the Stanley Cup champs got the win in overtime. down in Florida. So the Canucks complete the sweep of the champs. 27 saves. Maybe his best was off the defenseman Mikkola midway through that third period. He was all alone in front of the net, and maybe it's a good thing that it wasn't Sam Reinhart or Barkov or Tkachuk. There's enough weapons on that Florida team. Mikkola's not one of them necessarily, but he stared him down, made the save, and made everything else that came his way. And I think the Canucks did a pretty nice job. The shots were fairly one-sided. Score effects in play. Again, we know that the Canucks don't generate a ton in the way of shots and didn't need a lot of shots in a game like this one. But Kevin Lankinen, this guy just does his job. The Canucks have 15 wins. He has 14 of them.
I know.
I'm repeating that. The team has 15 wins. They've used 3 goalies, and he has 14 of them.
And to think, Jeff, they've got their Vezina caliber goalie on the bench watching.
Yep.
And might continue to watch after the performance like this, and especially with the way the team played in front of him. Just looking at some of the people's reaction in our inboxes. Lanky, the difference. Fans taking him for granted. Not entirely sure of that one. Great game, building blocks. Friedman looked great. Forbert, a better option than Desharnais. Maybe the skate jerseys are a problem. Really, Nick says, really love forward depth. Really love the fourth line and how Miller's return slotted everyone in much better. I really do believe that as well. And, the head coach is probably going to say it as well, just balances them out a little bit in that sense. But defensively, they were good. Yep. I thought that Derek Forbert had a really, really nice hockey game. And for a guy that's kind of taken a beating early in the season, and then everything kind of where he had to go through, the personal matters, passing of his father, and coming back getting hurt. Like, the guy's been through hell this season. And for him to come back and be able to have the performance that he did was obviously a nice touch there.
Irf's going rogue on us here because we're trying to do the 3 stars. You're getting all the honorable mention guys before we even get the graphic back up there, Jacob. There we go. Kevin Lankinen, the 4th star. We're going with Max Sasson. Plays a career-high 13 minutes in the National Hockey League. His previous high was the game in Minnesota at the end of the road trip. Some fresh legs there. He had played 10 minutes and 10 seconds, so by 3 minutes establishes a career high. And, if you're starting to look with Miller back and, the top 12 forwards now, I think Max Sasson is sort of edging his way closer to being a regular than some of the other call-ups here. And tonight it was Atu Ratu that came out of the lineup. Max Sasson stayed and played, and boy, did he ever has the 2-assist night. I was just looking at his stats in Abbotsford this season. He has 1 2-assist game down on the farm this year. I think he has 3 2-point games, but the other ones involve goals. But as far as 2-assist games, 1 in Abbotsford now and 1 here in the show with the Vancouver Canucks. So congrats to Max Sasson, and there we go. Brock Boeser in his 500th game. We could have squeezed JT Miller in there. We could have squeezed a bunch of guys, but we'll mark the occasion for Brock Boeser. He is the 3rd star. The 3 stars here on Rink Wide Vancouver, brought to you by Greta Bar, YVR. You've heard us talking about Greta. Have you checked it out for yourself? And if not, what are you waiting for? Great atmosphere. I'm sure it was hopping on a game night. So many big screens. There's not a bad seat in the house. You got the arcade games, terrific new street food menu, weekly drink specials, and there's talk of another Canucks Army watch party coming up early in the new year, so stay tuned for some details on that one. Greta Bar, the place to be, 50 West Cordova, Greta Bar. Let the games begin. All right, we've talked about some of the stars here. I do want to, let's stick with JT Miller for a sec, because the final numbers for JT Miller, 2 assists, absolutely, it's an overwhelming success in his return after being away for 3.5 weeks and 10 games. Canucks held their head above water with Miller out of the lineup, but what a boost to get him back. Plays 14-17. So Rick Tocchet was clear this morning that he wasn't going to grind him. Obviously, he's going to kind of ease him back in. The 3 and then 4-0 leads that certainly made life a little more easy on the coaching staff again to control lines. But Miller goes 12 and 8 in the faceoff circle. We talked about the draw that he won on the DeBrusk power play goal. So almost like no time had passed for JT Miller. Welcomed back by his teammates and the organization, and obviously by the fan base. And to jump back on and be able to contribute the way that he did, I think that's not struggling to find his game, not wondering where his game is, to be able just to step in midstream like that and contribute. Turns out to be a really good night for JT and the hockey club. Yeah,
I'm going to go back to something of what Austin Matthews said when he was away from the team, obviously, but he was injured, so he didn't forget how to play hockey.
Yep.
JT Miller didn't. It was about a little bit of conditioning, and, they had the luxury of not having to lean on their big guys for a lot of the game, but no shot on goal. But I feel like that will come from JT Miller. He's going to get his. The face-off, that's something that, Elias Pettersson took advantage of and being good in that category. Elias Pettersson wasn't that great in the faceoff circle tonight, but JT Miller was, and obviously you start with the puck and good things happen.
All right, we told you off the top that if you wanted to get in on a super chat and you wanted to have your super chat read there, you can see the graphic on screen. All of super chats are in support of the BC Mental Health Foundation, and this one comes from Sam DeBrusk. Is he last year's Hyman? Nice super chat, charity partner. Thanks for your contribution there, Sam. I don't know if he's going to get, was it 54?
Yeah, I don't think he's going to get 54.
Yeah, but no, I hear where you're going here. I mean, he picked a spot that he thought he could be successful. That's part of being an unrestricted free agent. He looked around, had only been a Boston Bruin, and decided to make the jump to the West Coast. And, it took a while, obviously. Hasn't been a straight line by any means. A few twists and turns along the way. Started with Pettersson, got dropped. At one point, wasn't he on the third line for a game or two there? Got punted off the top unit power play. But again, everything coming up Jake DeBrusk right now. So again, thanks to Sam for the super chat, helping out our worthy super chat partner. All right. So JT Miller, we talked about his night. We've talked about DeBrusk. Boeser and Lankinen as well. I do want to get to the depth defenders because, we wondered the other night, did Erik Brannstrom take a seed? A fair bit of consternation in the market. What are they doing? They struggled to move the puck without him. Right from the get-go in this hockey game, just defensively, I thought that first period, when we talk about best wins of the season, this one's right up there. I thought that first period, jumping on the Panthers, getting the lead, playing with the lead, not spending much time defending. They outshot Florida 10-7 in the opening period, and I thought it went right through the lineup. That Quinn's not going to spend too much time in his own zone, but with the struggles they had moving the puck, forward hadn't played in 6 weeks. He comes back. Friedman had some jump in this game, a couple of big hits, pasted A.J. Greer on the end boards. That drew a big reaction from the crowd, mixing it up with a couple of Panthers, jawing at guys. I thought Friedman and Forbort together, and Rick Tocchet wanted that lefty-righty combination. They look really good as depth defenders, and you have to imagine, why would you mess with a winning lineup? I would think you're probably coming right back with those two guys in the 5 and 6 holes on Saturday night against the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, the only thing that we talked about it would be goalie, if there would be anything, but I don't know how you remove a goaltender after a shutout against the defending Stanley Cup champions. The depth defenseman, I was critical of the decision. I think we both were. I think a lot of people were, taking out Erik Brannstrom and, having Mark Friedman play and, play some minutes. And they looked good. They didn't look like they were out of place. Forbort was there and he was pretty good. The interesting one for me is not it's going to who come back. It's going to be how long before we see Vinny Desharnais again. And is the next time we see Vinny Desharnais going to be in a different NHL uniform?
Well, now his name is officially out there. Elliot Friedman writing in his 32 Thoughts. Yeah. I know the name had been kicked around in the market, but it's in print now. The Vancouver Canucks are exploring options to move Vincent Desharnais to a different opportunity. It just hasn't worked out here. And now that Forbort is healthy and back in the lineup, I know Rick Tocchet this morning said that, hey, Brannstrom's going to play again. But I would be surprised if it's as soon as Saturday night, just based on the evidence we saw here. Together in 7 minutes and 25 seconds of 5-on-5 ice time, the Friedman-Forbort combo. And again, they're not seeing the top of the Panthers lineup for the most part, but these are the champs. They're one of the highest scoring teams in the league. They can throw a lot at you. And in 7.5 minutes of 5-on-5, the Canucks outshot Florida 5-3 with that pairing on the ice and outscored them 1-0. So if you have that kind of night from your bottom pair, generally things are going your way. And then Friedman had the big hit on Luosterainen early in the second period as well. He's a feisty guy. We saw that in his limited ice time. He's not the biggest guy, but he plays bigger than his size. And not going to back down, not afraid, seems to love the physical contact. So good for Mark Friedman. Talk about just being patient and biding your time. And I wasn't convinced that he was going to get an opportunity in the National Hockey League this year from the Vancouver Canucks as you build your depth. Sometimes guys like that unfortunately get squeezed, but waited. It kind of reminded me of the Bulldog, Alex Biega, a few years ago, where he knew his role and was one of the great practice players of all time. And when they tapped him to go, he ready.
Went, yeah.
And Mark, there's some similarities there, I think, for Mark Friedman. So you got to feel good. Plus, his birthday is coming up. Only guy in the National Hockey League with a Christmas Day birthday.
Really? Mm-hmm. There's a stat that stands out.
I talked to him about it last year. I wrote about it at Canucks Army. Yeah. The piece still exists there. And in fact, he's the first guy in a while to play in the NHL with a Christmas Day birthday, which is odd. I mean, 700 guys, it's all random, right? Like, you'd think somebody would have a Christmas birthday. It's been a while, but Mark Friedman, who said his family's Jewish, and he said they don't celebrate Christmas, so it wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't like his birthday got overshadowed in his household. They marked it. It was just Mark's birthday on December the 25th. Well,
I'm going to jump in here. I think Hanukkah starts on Christmas this year, so it'll be a Hanukkah birthday.
Oh, there
for
you
Mark
go.
Friedman.
All right. So he can, he'll have reason to celebrate on December 25th. He had reason to celebrate here on December the 12th. I thought Mark Friedman was really good in limited minutes, and kind of curious to see what happens here moving forward with the depth defenders on the Vancouver Canucks.
Josh McLeod on X, full team game, everyone pulling on the rope. Even guys like Garland, Petey played hard despite not leading the offense. Sasson, Friedman, Joshua, Forbert, Heinen, Pluger, depth guys all stepped up, and against a great opponent too. Very encouraging team win. How do you build on this win, Jeff? So I ask you this. Not much to hate. What did you like the most about this Canucks game?
Yeah, I like the start. I mean, how many times have we talked about starts to hockey games? Well, all of a sudden, they have opened the scoring in 3 straight at home, 4 of their last 5 at home. This is the first wire-to-wire home ice win of the season. Remember, they jumped out to the 3-0 lead on Calgary and squandered that. I mean, they were up 4-1 and ultimately lost that hockey game. But I like the fact that they opened the scoring. But how many times have I said to you, or part of the difference from last year is they haven't built on leads. They haven't extended leads. And so it took them the bulk of the first period, but they didn't give up a goal, and then they were able to cash in. And much like Dakota Joshua, like when you're not scoring, sometimes the simplest thing is go to the net with your stick on the ice and hope that a teammate finds you. And that's what happened the other night to Garland to Joshua, and here it was Danton Heinen going to the net, and Max Sasson was feeling it in the first period. So I mean, I echo the commenter there that, sure, Miller's back and he has a couple assists, and Quinn Hughes is Quinn Hughes, and he picks up his points, and DeBrusk scores. But, yeah, I mean, this was a win on the backs of some of the depth guys, and that had to feel good for Danton Heinen. Like, it's been way too long, obviously.
We've been talking about where does Danton Heinen fit on this hockey team?
For sure.
Yeah.
And so, when I look at Danton Heinen's night, he has a goal. He's on the ice for a couple of goals for the Vancouver Canucks, just the one shot, so effective there. His one shot was, 2 feet away from the net, and he was able to put it behind Sergei Bobrovsky. But, I mean, and again, no knock. Like, Aatu Räty's tried his best and has had some moments here along the way, but when all of a sudden Teddy Bluger is able to drop down and be the fourth-line center, and you've got a veteran guy like Danton Heinen, and Sasson's got the wheels and the energy, just one little subtle tweak. Like, Aatu Räty had played every game since the California road trip. I think the game in San Jose was the last game that he had sat out. So he had a nice run here, and he'll play again.
He's 22.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's not a knock on Aatu Räty. It's just that as they're trying to sort out their optimal lineup in the here and now, if Max Sasson, he's not going to pick up 2 points every game, but if he can look dangerous, if he can use that speed, and I loved his first period. When you asked me about things I like, me and do something, right? He was the low ice time guy. Max Sasson was the low ice time guy on the Vancouver Canucks. And what does he do? Picks up a couple of assists. They're both primary assists. The Canucks outshot the Panthers 4-1 with him on the ice in the first period. Like, it isn't, sometimes it's not how much or how little you play. It's just making the most of the opportunity. And that's exactly what Max Sasson did. So good night for him. I think another big step in the right direction. And it's pretty clear that Tocchet likes this guy, right? Like, he believes him, he trusts him, and the kid's rewarded. I say kid, he's 24 now. So, but he's been patient too. Like, the time he spent in college, turns pro, put in the shifts down in Abbotsford to work for the call-up, and then picks up the assist in his debut. Had a couple of assists out on the road trip, and now doubles his point total. He's up to 4 points in 9 games, like almost a half a point a game guy at the National Hockey League for Max Sasson. So, good news stories all around, but really like the depth contributions. And, it wasn't that long ago, a show or two ago, where we were saying, like, Hoglander, Joshua, Heinen, like, where are the depth contributions? It can't always be at the top of the lineup. So, that's, I think, more than anything, and then, Lankinen, just doing his thing. I like that a lot. I like that an awful lot, and I'm sure the Canucks did as well.
Absolutely. First name you mentioned, let's go to him because we always talk about him. Number 21 in your program, 13-19 of ice time for Niels Hoglander. Not a shot on net, one takeaway, but he was noticeable. Like you kind of saw him running around a little bit.
Yeah, I think the hustle is kind of coming back into his game. And look, you can understand when you play 6 minutes in Buffalo, that sort of low point. I'm sure the confidence was low then as well. He's starting to look a little more like himself, and that's promising. And what an opportunity. Like, JT Miller comes back, and we're asking, like, all right, what are the lines going to look like for the coach to choose a guy that has gone months now without a goal, hasn't looked all that dangerous? Like, that has to be a boost in his confidence as well. I know he didn't score in this hockey game, and he didn't really have a lot in the way of scoring opportunities, but I thought he looked into it. Like, he was invested in this game. That's a good sign. And he sure as hell better have been. Like, you're playing with Miller and Boeser. If you want more opportunities in that role, you had to at least look the part, and I think he did. So, again, I think it would be almost impossible to find anybody to throw darts at in this Canucks lineup tonight. So I'm certainly not going to pick at Niels Hoglander for not scoring or not creating a ton.
I thought he played well.
Yeah, so did I. If you're not scoring, I want to notice you for the right reasons, and I think I did in this one. So, Tocchet's shown that he's not going to be patient forever. Like, this isn't an endless opportunity for Hoglander. If you're playing with Miller and Boeser, you're going to have to find a way to create and produce. But, for one night at least, I thought, I want to see more of that, and I probably will on Saturday against the Boston Bruins. And then, I guess I was a little curious. You had Pettersson and DeBrusk. You knew that those two would stick together. Boeser was going to drop down to play or move up. It depends how you look at it. He was going to play with JT Miller. And so there was a spot open on Elias Pettersson's right side. Turns out that they went with Kiefer Sherwood. I wondered if Connor Garland was the better option. Like, Sherwood in a short boost there a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, you got his.
and great. Like, I think in a pinch, I have no issues with a guy that's going to bring a little spark. But just the way that Connor Garland has played, the way that he's driven play all season long, I wonder if at some point maybe he's a better option. But I know that Tocchet wants to he so badly wants to get that chemistry back with Garland and Joshua. And we saw it on the goal the other night.
I think that's important, though.
Yeah.
Like, he wants to. I think for him, you got the two with JT Miller and Brock Boeser and Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk. I think he wants to get that line back to being that line that he could depend on, and that was the line that was going for him late in the season. That was the line that was one of the best third lines in the NHL last season. I think Tocchet really wants to have that, and I think that in a roundabout way, it might help Dakota Joshua even more, try and elevate his game to know every night he's going to play with those two guys that, he's been familiar with, that he's had the chemistry with, that, he's had success with. The reason why he earned his new contract was with those guys. So I do like that idea. My question to you, though, Jeff, is there's so much about Elias Pettersson and Jake DeBrusk and who kind of goes there, but who's the best fit with JT Miller and Brock Boeser? Like, on this, there's so many guys that it could be.
Yep.
We saw Archie Bains up there, Niels Hoglander. It's been a revolving door of wingers, but who do you think right now is the best kind of fit on that top line?
I probably would say Pius Suter.
Okay.
But then you're moving parts around here, and then Aatu Räty's got to come back and be your fourth line center. And we talked about how effective Teddy Bluger looked sort of in his, I think, optimal slot as the fourth line guy. So, I think this is going to be sort of an ongoing thing for the Canucks all season. And they're probably not going to stay completely healthy up front, right? Like, just come through a stretch here without Dakota Joshua to start, and then Boeser and then Miller. This is life in professional sports. Guys come and go. But in the here and now, I'm fine with Hoglander getting another opportunity there, but he is going to have to find a bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been, 23 games now, I think, for him without a goal. They know what they've got in Pius Suter. They know that they can count on Pius Suter and trust Pius Suter, and if they put him back with Miller and Boeser, kind of like hand in glove. They've been there and done that, and he's just such a smart, intelligent player. He's going to make the right plays, and the numbers show like he makes that line better. He may not be the sexy option, but he just quietly goes about his business and is effective. So they can go there, but then you're probably looking at elevating Teddy Bluger, and I know Bluger had that run with Garland and Joshua, but Teddy Blueger is not a goal scorer. Like, that's not how he profiles. He's here to kill penalties and late in game and protect leads and those types of things. I think you're probably hoping to catch lightning in a bottle again if you think that, all the planets are going to align and that line can get it together. I like the idea of Pia Suter between those guys because Suter is he's a better offensive option than Teddy Blueger. So that sort of is the dilemma for Rick Tocchet.
Yeah.
You move these parts around, and ultimately, as much as they need help on defense, and I do think that is where management's looking, we saw it last year where they went out and they got a defenseman, but they also went and upgraded at forward. They think that they have addressed some of the scoring on the wings, and Jake DeBrusk, and he's looked the part so far, but could you go and look for another third-line center the way that they did last year with Elias Lindholm?
You mentioned that, and it's funny because obviously Sam Park, he gave us our super chat there. He's all over the socials, and he said that he wonders if Patrick Alvin is going to start looking for a second pairing on defense. But what about a rental winger this season? Just empty the cupboards. If you think you're there, are you going to go all in? And I've heard this before with certain people in certain markets where it's something that it's not out of the question for this team, right? They kind of did it last year with Lindholm. They didn't know what was going to happen. You did it with Zadorov. You didn't know what was going to happen. If you feel you're that good and you feel that this is the one thing that's going to put your team over the edge, and you need someone to play either with Elias Pettersson, Jake DeBrusk, or someone with JT Miller and Brock Boeser, you can go and make that move. I don't know how much of the future they want to mortgage on doing something like that. I would for a defenseman if I was really doing something, but it's not something that's a completely crazy thought.
Well, and this is, I guess, what kind of makes me scratch my head a little bit is they had Daniel Sprong here. And I get that it didn't work, and obviously they traded him away, so they're not getting him back, but I like the idea of Daniel Sprong. I like the idea of a hired gun that scores goals. Now, if he wasn't going to be conscientious defensively, then he probably was never going to work out in Rick Tocchet's system, but, we're talking about, all right, who should be on the wings and who complements who. I guess I wish there had been a little more there and a little more patience on the organization's part just to see if there could have been an opportunity for Daniel Sprong to be a hired gun and score a bunch of goals for the Vancouver Canucks. Alas, he scored the first goal of the season, and that was it. And now he's having trouble getting into the Seattle Kraken lineup. So maybe he wasn't the answer, but we'll never know because he doesn't play here anymore. Dan Jardine in the chat saying, Lekkermaki's going to be a great fit on the Miller-Boeser line next year. And we probably shouldn't forget about Jonathan Lekkermaki. I don't think we have forgot about him, but I think we'll see him again at some point this year. They gave him the 5-game test. He scored, and then you send him back to the minors, work on a few things, continue to, dangle that carrot in front of him. Even if they remain healthy, I still think at some point you can send a Ratu down. Doesn't need waivers right now. You can bring Lekkermaki up. I don't know about you. I think we'll see Lekkermaki again.
At some point. He's got to earn his way up, obviously.
Yeah, and I don't know that he's he's not going to come up and be here for good.
No.
And I tend to agree that
we're going to have the dog days of the season where, there's an injury that could happen as well again, Jeff, but there's going to be a point where, Canucks fans are going to get to see him again. I think he needs to go and put a little bit of muscle on, work on his game a little bit, the North American game a little bit as well. DPD's an interesting one. Are we going to see him come up? And, obviously down the pipeline, further down is obviously Tom Villander. It's funny. One of our YouTube chat is going off, and it's weird. They're always PD in that chat. I don't know. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. I don't know why. It's always the guy. It seems like they're obsessed with him or something. There's someone. Oh, here's someone on X. The name. I pray that you're stupid. That's his name. Great start. Build on it. Play a team to get the W, played a great team game to get the W against a team who has more talent in their lineup. Very refreshing. I think that's a big one as well to point out. Yeah. Like the Florida Panthers on paper probably should beat the Vancouver Canucks pretty easily just based on talent alone, and the Canucks went and waxed the floor with them.
Yeah, and look, Matthew Tkachuk, I was a little surprised when I saw this yesterday in the game notes, but since the middle of November, Matthew Tkachuk leads the NHL in scoring.
Yeah.
He's been on an absolute heater. He had one shot on goal. He seemed like most of the night he was chasing Quinn around. Like they're buddies, but it felt like that was his objective tonight, was to get a lick on Quinn Hughes. And at one point in the second period, he got a piece of Quinn, but very few guys actually catch Quinn solidly. So, just a sort of quiet night, and I think everybody on the Canucks is fine with that. If it's a quiet night for Matthew Tkachuk. Barkov had scored in 3 straight games, had their only goal in the shootout win in Seattle the other night. He had 4 shots. He had a really good chance in the second period off the rush, and Lankinen flashed out his right pad. I thought that was one of Lankinen's better saves on the night, but the West Van kid, Sam Reinhart, held to 1 shot on goal. So that's a victory for the Vancouver
Canucks.
Canucks.
That shoots a lot.
Shooting Sammy, 19 goals coming in, and relatively quiet night for him. So there are weapons, without a doubt, on that Florida team. You know that they won the Stanley Cup. They've been to back-to-back Cup finals, but the Canucks complete the sweep. They needed overtime down in Florida when JT Miller picked up the puck in the neutral zone, cut around the right side, and snapped it home to win that one. And Miller back in the lineup tonight. No overtime required. 4-0. The Vancouver Canucks defeat the Florida Panthers. Keep the contributions coming to the Great Clips inbox. We want to hear from you. You're hearing from us, but we want you to be a part of the program as well, whether it's on the socials or in the YouTube live chat. More than 4,400 hair salons throughout the United States and Canada. Great Clips, the world's largest hair salon brand and the official hair salon of the NHL. Salons are locally owned and operated. They're open 7 days a week. For more information, check them out online, greatclips.com. Great Clips. It's going to be great. All right, let's get to the stat that stands out from this one. We've talked about Kevin Lankinen a fair bit, 27-save shutout. And as you can see on the screen there, if you're watching on YouTube, you can't see it if you're listening to the podcast, but Kevin Lankinen sets a career high with his 3rd shutout of the season. Interestingly, all 3 have come against Eastern teams. This is his first shutout at home for the Vancouver Canucks. Blanked Philadelphia early. Was lights out good in Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Was like the reason he was first, second, and third star, I think, that night. And here against the Florida Panthers. So feasted on the East. And, again, just technically sound and solid in this hockey game. Like, didn't have to be spectacular. I think that speaks to the job that the guys in front of him did. A fair bit of one and done for the Florida Panthers in this hockey game, and goalies are fine with that. We outlined a couple of the key stops that he made. But, that's a stat that stands out for a guy that couldn't find work in the National Hockey League. Here he is 2 weeks before Christmas, and he's established a career high in shutouts in a season, and where's he going to push that total by season's end? So good on him. I mean, it's incredible. Every way you slice it with Kevin Lankinen really has been, not just here in Vancouver. I mean, he has been one of the stories in the National Hockey League in the first couple of months.
And I think that people are finally starting to pay a little bit of attention to this guy, right? I mean, I know that Stolarz is playing lights out in Toronto, and there's some other good goaltenders. Hellebuck, obviously, the season that he's having and always has seemingly in Winnipeg, but this guy, like you mentioned it, Jeff, I mean, he's got 14 wins in 21 games as a member of the Vancouver Canucks. 132 games played in the NHL. And I think when you look at that, for a guy that came in very late, signed with this team, and we've talked about it over and over again, it was opportunity. He knew he was going to get an opportunity. He knew he was going to play, and he has exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations of what he could be and what he means to this team. Now, I'm not going to go out and say that there's going to be a controversy or anything like that, but we talk about it so much about best chance to win and who needs to go in net and whatever. Kevin Lankinen is playing lights out. Like that is your number one goalie right now, in my opinion.
So work with me here, because I asked this question on X before the game. The Canucks are in Vegas 1 week from tonight.
Yep.
This kicks off a really difficult week. You got the Stanley Cup champs. They've taken care of them. Colorado is coming to town, although they got whacked by Utah.
That's smoked, yeah.
We'll look around. A weird night in the National Hockey League. Lots going on. But you've got Colorado on Monday, and then they're out on a back-to-back road trip, Utah and Vegas. So I was trying to reverse engineer. In my mind, given the bodies of work of the goaltenders available to Rick Tocchet, I think Kevin Lankinen, you want him in that game in Vegas.
I think
so. To get there, I would just alternate now. I know the other night we tried to figure out like how many starts for Demko before Christmas. I would come back with, and maybe a shutout changes the discussion here. In my mind, I would have gone Demko on Saturday against Boston. The Bruins don't score much. Struggled down in Seattle. Is that one a final now? I think it is. It was 4-1 at one point. Just looking at, did it end 4-1?
The Boston game?
5-1.
5-1.
5-1. So
Yep.
the Bruins coming in here off an 8-1 loss in Winnipeg. This was their bounce-back game. Their only goal coming on a penalty shot by Brand Marchand. But the Bruins don't score much. They're a struggling team. It feels like, again, if you're looking to ease Thatcher Demko back into the National Hockey League, I would go Demko. And then Lankinen can face the Colorado Avalanche. You know what Nate and Rantanen can do on any given night. I think that's going to be a challenge at the end of the homestand. That would keep Demko for Utah, and then Lankinen in Vegas on the back-to-backs.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I'm not entirely sure if they're going to give him the break after the shutout. I think the way the team played, you might want to keep that in. But then you go maybe Demko Monday, Wednesday, and then Lankinen, give Lankinen a few days off. So he'd be playing Saturday, practice Sunday, maybe off Monday, practice Tuesday, then morning skate Wednesday, and then play on Thursday. Like, I think that, I don't know if it's a few days off. You don't want him having that, but it's a good problem to have. This conversation.
Maybe Lankinen shuts out Boston on Saturday.
And then it's all, then we're done. Then we're stopped talking
but I do
about
wonder
it. That's
if, like, could Lankinen play 3 in a row here and Demko's next start be out on the road in Utah? Who knows? We're getting way ahead of ourselves here. Their next game is Saturday against the Boston Bruins, and then the homestand wraps up on Monday against the Colorado Avalanche. So looking forward to seeing Nathan MacKinnon and the Colorado Avalanche now that they've found some goaltending. I think that they're going to start to hit their stride. And really, the win for the Canucks was important on so many levels. Had to bounce back from the St. Louis game. Had to bounce back from, I think I said they had alternated wins and losses on the homestand. Obviously, they hadn't because they lost to Tampa and then lost in overtime to St. Louis. But they had 3 points in the first 3 games. But when you look at the Vancouver Canucks here, as we talked about some of the challenges in front of them, it was important to get a home ice win. It was important to get a win against a really good team at full strength and to get contributions from a lot of guys. So they checked off a ton of boxes, I think, in this hockey game. And, now you have to set your sights on Boston and think that that's another very gettable game, the way that the Bruins are going, the way the Canucks are coming off of this one. So we'll see what happens on Saturday when they get back at it, the late game on Hockey Night in Canada.
Elias Lindholm left the game with 12 minutes left in the second period. Didn't return. Bruins calling it an upper body injury. So, I mean, you hope that he's okay. Make his return here to Rogers Arena. And you know that Nikita Zadorov is going to have some fun at some point or at anyone's expense.
But when I said it was an important win for the Canucks, Vegas gets an overtime win in Winnipeg.
Yep.
Edmonton lights up Minnesota. Yikes, 7-1. Calgary got thumped. Kucherov had 6 points. 8-3 was the final there. So Calgary doesn't win, but Seattle, they won. Los Angeles lost.
They were on a
shots on goal for the Los Angeles Kings in Jersey. I guess you credit Jersey, but 12 shots on goal. Yikes. So, it was a night where Vegas and Edmonton both pick up 2 points, and they're trying to separate. And so Canucks hold serve and keep pace with Golden Knights, lead the Pacific Division with 41 points. LA has 37, Edmonton has 36, and the Canucks up to 35. And the Canucks do have a game in hand on all 3 of those teams that are above them. So, good win here. And now a chance really to make this a successful homestand. These final 2 games, like you get to the 4th game of the homestand, you're 1-1-1. If you lose this game in regulation, now all of a sudden you're trying to play catch up again and just trying to salvage the homestand. Well, now they're 2-1-1. Get the win on Saturday, and then you really have an opportunity to make it. I mean, look, they went 4-1-1 on the road trip, and we all raved about that. They're setting themselves up here if they can finish up strong, go 4-1-1 all of a sudden. That's a pretty. If they could go 4-1-1 on the homestand after 4-1-1 on the road, you do the math there. That's a pretty impressive 12-game stretch for the Vancouver Canucks, considering who hasn't been available to them for the better part of a month. So we're getting ahead of ourselves again. Take care of business against the Boston Bruins on Saturday, but and we'll see about Lindholm if he's available. But you look at this Bruins team; they're 7-4 under Joe Sacco. So they made the coaching change.
Get the coach bump, obviously.
I suppose. The Canucks were one of the teams in the first 10 games. The Canucks were one of the teams to beat the Boston Bruins. But I just can't get over the fact that Marchand leads the team with 12 goals. Pasternak has 10. After that, there's just this massive drop. Justin Brazeau is third on the Boston Bruins in scoring. You mentioned Elias Lindholm, 3 goals in 31 games.
He's just as good as Niels Hoglander right now, like production-wise, right?
And then Big Z, and you're right, like you just know that he's going to get up for this game. He's done this before. He's played so many places, but he'll be fired up on a Saturday night. The thing is with him, he came into this night tied with his teammate, Mark Kastelik, for the lead in penalty minutes. The 2 Boston Bruins at the top of the penalty minute chart. And Zadorov led I haven't checked after tonight, but Zadorov led the National Hockey League with 20 minors. Charlie McAvoy second with 18. So just way too many penalties, the most penalized team in the league. And they've got the most power play time in the National Hockey League because their power play is dead last at 12%.
And you'd think it'd be higher. I mean, look at his on. Pasternak, Marchand, McAvoy.
So they take a bunch of penalties, and when they get their opportunities on the power play, just doing absolutely nothing with them. So, again, a gettable game for the Vancouver Canucks, but they have to get out there and make it happen. If they play like they did in this one, I think that they should be in pretty good shape. And again, if you're talking, I can't imagine that you tamper or tinker with a winning lineup unless there is a goaltending change. But otherwise, as far as the skaters go, if everybody came through this night healthy, and I think they didn't detect that anybody left or suffered any kind of knock, then I think you're coming back with the same group. And why wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, too. You mentioned earlier Matthew Tkachuk was trying to take a run at his buddy Quinn Hughes. You want to know why he couldn't hit him? Jacob?
I'm Quinn Hughes.
That's why. That's exactly why. That's exactly why. Because you Quinn Hughes. He just comes out and,
I'm Quinn Hughes.
Just so easily. Just does it. That's it.
Say my name.
Say my name. It's just him. He doesn't even need to do much. Says it so nonchalantly and everyone knows.
We still haven't heard. I mean, that's the first time I've heard his voice in a week because we asked for him again this morning. And the PR staff said he's just not ready to go before the camera. It's like, that mouth must be an absolute mess, still wearing the bubble. It's not
look like that. Yeah.
But I don't know if he did post-game tonight. Whatever the case, like he took the high stick early in the game against Tampa the other day, and we just found out yesterday, like the upper lip apparently was a bit of a disaster. Required some like serious medical attention. So
and for guys that wear that, or to not, like, as much as guys hate wearing the fishbowl thing because it stops with seeing the puck. I mean, Quinn Hughes doesn't even need to look at the puck. Rarely does he ever when he stick handles, but it's trying to get it off as soon as you can. And for Quinn Hughes, obviously, he's definitely tending to something there.
All right. Have you looked ahead at the schedule on Friday night?
Yes, I have. Yeah, absolutely.
There ain't much happening.
No, there's not much happening at all.
I hope that you can find something there as we switch gears and get to our line of the night, brought to you by Bet365.
100% is this portion of the show, like you said, brought to you by Bet365, proud partner of Sekeres and Price. Canucks conversation, Jeff, you and I always here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Open an account with Bet365 today. Bet on a huge range of markets. Use code NATION. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. One game on the NHL schedule tomorrow. And I'm going with the dog. I'm going with the Ottawa Senators over the Carolina Hurricanes. Why? Because I think it's the only thing on there that you can actually try and make some money in this hockey game. Unless you do the player props and the parlays. Nichas is always good for a point, the way that he's been playing this season. Brady Tkachuk probably going to have 3 or 4 shots. He usually does every single time that he steps onto the ice. Tim Stützle as well. Good guy to bet on if you're doing the shot prop thing, but why not? Take a little run at the Ottawa Senators at plus 175. Good value there.
Nights like this one help the Canucks goal differential. Obviously, they outscored the Panthers by 4, so goal differential now at plus 5, which the Canucks are 11th in the National Hockey League standings, overall standings. But of those 11 teams, a plus 5 goal differential is the lowest. So they've eked out a ton of close wins. I mean, that's part of the story. That's part of how they've had success on the road. It hasn't always looked pretty, but been really effective. But so much of that is grinding out when you think of overtime wins in Florida and overtime wins out on that road trip in Detroit and Buffalo, and even the Boston game. They win it 2-0, but empty netter by Garland. So really a 1-0 game. At the end of the night, you just have to outscore your opponent by 1. That is the name of the game. And so we'll see if this maybe is a start of building on something to boost that goal differential They're on the right side. They're on the positive side of the ledger, but +5. Certainly some work to be done there. All right, I think we've done about as much work as we can do. Before we run, I just want to mention, as I always do here, make sure you're checking out all the great content posted at Canucks Army. You've got the instant reaction right after the game, all sorts of post-game features tonight and through the day on Friday. The Canucks expected to practice on Friday at UBC. Lacrosse taking over Rogers Arena. So the hockey club
Warriors,
getting
yes.
relegated for the day. I think that was the plan at the very least, and we'll see how much they have to practice after a 4-0 win over the Panthers. But Rick Tocchet will want to crack that whip and keep these guys focused and get them ready for what's left of the homestand. The Boston Bruins on Saturday. The Colorado Avalanche coming in on Monday. And Monday's a 7:30 start.
Probably
well.
about closer to 7:40, yeah.
Yeah. So a little later there, but hey, whenever they start, we'll be here whenever they end. That's what we do at Rink Wide Vancouver. So I know you're not around on Saturday, right? You're
No.
taking the Saturday off.
Yeah.
All right. Sure you'll be watching the Canucks and the Bruins. I hope there is some jump in the building. I thought, like, the return of Thatcher Demko one night, followed by the return of JT Miller, and I think the crowd reacted, but I don't know if they've hit critical mass with ticket pricing. I'm not sure what's going on, but there are a lot of empty seats, and I don't want to end really on a downer because the Canucks played well and the people that were there should have been entertained, but not the energy like the Stanley Cup champs. Their one and only appearance here, and like St. Louis on a Tuesday, I guess I understand, but like I hope on a Saturday in the holiday season, sort of kicking off the holiday season, the Boston Bruins. I hope that there's some energy in the building on Saturday night.
Yeah, you got to believe it. I mean, the holiday season is kind of upon us here a little bit as well. After they come back from the road trip, they got a couple games at home before the short break there. So you think it's going to ramp up a little bit as we head over into the holiday stretch here. But yeah, I can't imagine Saturday night, the Boston Bruins, it won't be a big one.
Harmon Dial is going to stop by, and he'll be the co-host sitting in your stead, and then you'll be back for the Avs on Monday night, so we're looking forward to that one. But again, just to finish a thought on Canucks Army, if you haven't already, make sure that you add that to your list of favorites and bookmarks and check out anything that happens in the Canucks orbit. It's covered there at Canucks Army, and of course, Sakaris and Price, Monday to Friday with the live show at noon, and Canucks Convo every day, Monday to Friday, starting at 2 o'clock as well. So all sorts of Canucks content under the Nation Network tent, and we are a part of it and happy to be so here at Rink Wide Vancouver. Again, thanks to Sam hitting us up with the super chat right off the hop.
Yep.
We'll make that a regular feature. As long as you make it a regular feature, we'll certainly make it a regular feature here at Rink Wide. And of course, it all supports the BC Mental Health Foundation. 4-0, the Vancouver Canucks shut out the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Good night for the home team at Rogers Arena, something that we haven't said nearly enough all season long. We'll see if they can build on it when the Bruins come to town on Saturday. For Jacob, working behind the scenes and keeping us in line and on track, and for Irf, I'm Jeff. Thanks so much for checking out another edition of Rink Wide Vancouver.